Hi there, this is James, and today I just wanted to make a really quick, short little game that we can build together really fast. Um, so I've made a couple really quick little assets here, like this little fish, and got a little tank for him to swim around in. And first thing we want to do is get the fish to swim. So we've got this player script here that I've attached to him, and we're going to open it up, and we need to do a couple quick things. First thing I want to do is we want to set a speed that the fish can float around at. So I'm just going to create a variable here called player speed, and this value could be anything. I think this is kind of a nice fish-like pace. And then I'm going to set another variable, and I'm going to call it last x position, and that's going to help us out in a minute here. And then last thing I want to do is set up a slot for something I'm going to call our game controller. We'll talk about that in just a minute here. Start method we know gets called just as the game is starting, as soon as the scene starts up. All I want to do here is just set that last x position to wherever our fish is at when the level begins. And again, I'm going to go over that in just a moment as to why we're doing that. And then our update method is going to be called every frame. Sorry, you can probably hear my dog there. She just wanted to say hi. I'm going to set up a couple more variables down here. One I'm going to call change in x. And how that's going to be set is it's going to change based on the input that we're doing on either the keyboard or a controller. This could even potentially be something that we could set up on like a mobile device with a virtual joystick or something like that. But really all it's doing is it's figuring out whatever input we're giving it. If it's, it could be the arrow keys on the keyboard moving left and right. That's going to set that horizontal speed. We're multiplying that here by the player speed as set up here. And we're going to do the same thing for moving up and down. We're going to call it change in y. And same thing, except just a different axis. Instead of left to right, we're doing up and down. Alrighty, and then we also want to make sure that that's getting multiplied by player speed as well. And then in this update method, we're changing that fish's position to be whatever we're changing it through our inputs, right? So the values that we set up here, getting from the input, is just becoming the fish's new position. And then one thing that's just going to make it feel a little more fun and kind of lifelike is I'm whatever the last position was for our fish. We want to check it, and if the player is moving left, the fish is gonna face left, and if we're moving right, the fish is gonna face right. So that's what I'm checking for here. I'm checking to see which direction it's moving, and then it's just gonna flip. This is the scale, so I have the fish doubled in size from the original image, so that -2 is gonna make it face left. And then if it's moving right, we want to make sure that it's facing right. Alrighty, so pretty similar logic here. I'm just making, here we're checking to make sure it's less than the last position. Here we're making sure it's right, more than the last position. And then instead of that -2, we want to do just a normal 2, and or +2 rather. And then at the end of our update method, we're resetting that last x position just so we're always keeping track of wherever we were last. And that's just set to wherever it may be. And then I want to do one more thing down here. As our fish is kind of floating around in its tank, we're going to be trying to catch little flakes of fish food. So I want to make sure that we have a way of interacting with that fish food. Unity has has this already set up, so that just auto-completed for me, so that's super nice. And then I want to make sure that what it's colliding with is the fish food. So I'm going to give that fish food object a little tag, and we're just going to call it food. And then if it does collide with a piece of food, we want to make sure we're going to do two things. We're going to have a score on our game that's going to get incremented. I called that that script game control. So we're going to create a method in just in a minute here that increases our score. And then we also want to get rid of that copy of the fish food. So it's going to look like the fish ate it. Okay, I think that's everything we need for our player script. So I'm going to open Unity back up, and then it's gonna it's just grabbing all the changes that we just made. Might take a little bit on my computer, but it's doing its thing. And then before we get too much farther, I just want to make sure that that's working the way we intend to. It's gonna be upset because we don't have a game controller yet. So I'm just gonna add an empty object. This script could be anywhere in the scene, but I'm just gonna make its own little object that it can live in. So we got the game control script here, even though it's empty right now. And then back on my fish in my player script, we want to assign that game controller object just so it knows exactly what it's looking for. So I'm just going to test this out real quick, make sure that our fish moves around. And oh, that's embarrassing. You know what? I'm just seeing in my console right here. It's because I misspelled horizontal. So that is embarrassing. So we want to make sure we spell that right, because otherwise it's not going to know what to look for. So that's going to take another couple seconds just to get that reloaded in. It's reloading that script in. And then we're going to hit play. Thanks for your patience. Okay, now our fish is working. So it's getting that input, and it's moving just the way we expected the fish to. So that's great. So now we got to give the fish something to do, right? So I also, before I go into that game controller script, I want to make a couple things happen. I want to make some fish food for the fish to catch. I just dragged in that fish food image, and I don't own a fish. Oh, we do want to make sure too, over here in our sorting layer, we just want to make sure that's ahead of the background but behind the fish. Sorry, that's not helpful. Okay, so background I'm going to set to 0. Our fish, it's at 20 right now. That's just an arbitrary number that I picked, and then the fish food will make 10. Remember, we also said that we're going to give it a tag called food. So I'm just creating that tag right here, and back in our fish food object, I just made these little squares here. I don't own a fish, so I think that's what fish food looks like. Um, all right. So a couple things we want to do. I want to give it some collision. I'm just going to do a real simple box collider. So that's fine. That's close enough. If the fish, if that catches any of the square there, then it'll eat the fish food. And then I'm also going to give it a rigid body, 2D. And the main reason I want to do that is just because I want to give it a little gravity. So as it enters the scene, it's going to be falling down. That's thanks to this gravity scale here, and I'm decreasing it a little bit just so it's not falling too fast, but still it's gonna kind of fall faster and faster as it goes down. So I got a couple components here, and then I'm going to drag this fish food object into my project assets down here, and that's going to make it a what's called a prefab, which basically just means we can make as many copies of an object as we need as we go. One more thing I don't want to forget before I get too far ahead of myself is we want to make sure there is a collider for the fish as well, so that it can catch the food that we're centered this way. I'm going to just make it a little smaller, and I'm going to move it over to where our fish's mouth is. So I'm just dragging on that radius that makes our circle smaller, and then I'm moving it more over to its mouth with this offset by moving the X and Y. So that's pretty good. This way, this fish is going to catch the food in its mouth. If it flies by its tail or its fins, it doesn't catch the food. So it's only if its mouth catches it that that'll count towards anything. Okay, great. So we got a fish. He's ready to eat. So we're going to edit our game controller object now. And I'm going to do a couple things here. First thing I want to do, we're going to add, we want to let Unity know that we're going to use the UI elements. And that's because I want to add a little score feature so we can know how much food the fish has eaten. So on that note, I'm going to add a couple variables, one for the score itself. I'm going to add a variable for how much each, how many points you get every time you collect some food. So we'll call that food points. And I've just made it worth 10 points. It could be any amount. And then we're also going to add a field where we can put that score itself, and that'll give us the option of or a way to set the score from our game controller. Also, I want to add a spot for that prefab of the fish food that we just made. And I'm adding a couple elements for what's going to be a timer. So I'm adding the timer itself, which I'm setting to 0, and then it's going to count up towards a goal. And this goal is actually kind of a minimum, because I also want to add, just to make it a little more interesting, a random number, so that you can't always predict exactly when the next bit of food is going to drop. So we're going to have a couple of random things down here, actually. As we're starting our game, we're going to set the score to 0. And then we're going to make... I'm so sorry about my dog. She just wants to hang out with me right now. Alrighty, so I'm setting a random range for whenever this food comes down. The way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to make our update method a fixed update method, and then it's going to fixed update means is different from update, because update is called once a frame. Fixed update is called a fixed amount, and I believe by default it's 50 times a second in Unity. So that's why I've set this goal. It's kind of a minimum for that goal. That's 1 second, and then this could potentially add up to 2 seconds. So from anywhere from 1 to 3 seconds, we're going to get some more food is going to be thrown into the tank for the fish to collect. So we're checking to see in our fixed update if that food timer is counting up. Do we have it, exceeding? Is it meeting the goal that we've set? So I've got the food timer checking to see, is it more than that minimum plus that random amount that we're adding? And if so, we're going to add some fish food to the tank. So I'm going to instantiate. That means we're making a copy of that prefab that we made earlier. So we're going to pull from that fish food, which we have assigned up here earlier in the script. And then we need a spot for it to show up at. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about my dog. Okay. I should have put her away, but I said no, she'll be fine. Okay. So I'm setting again, I'm using that random range feature, and I'm doing this to create so it's going to be added along some point that we don't know in the some point in the tank from left to right. It could be added in anywhere left to right, but this is going to be on screen, and then I think I got too many parentheses here, and I'm confusing myself. Okay, so I see what I did here. I don't know why I put random range twice. Got distracted by my dog. I'm so sorry. Okay, so we got a place for it to show up, and then I want it to pop up above the screen. So I'm just gonna do I'm doing 6. That's going to be a little bit above the screen. I know from just playing around with it before. Okay, so we got a vector, and then it also is going to want us to set a rotation. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. So I'm just not going to mess with rotation right now. We could potentially just have it added into the tank in different ways, but right now we're just keeping it simple. Okay, so that's going to create the food, and then whenever food is created, we also want to reset the timer back to 0, and I also want to keep that random variable that we added random. So we'll just have it do the exact same thing we did at the beginning. We're going to reset that, and it could be, again, we're keeping it between 1 and 3 seconds. So just kind of keeping it a little fresh. And then we want to make sure that food timer is counting up as we go. So that's how 50 times a second, it's increasing that. And then when it is, when that food timer is more than its goal, then these items will be called. And then, if you'll remember, in our player script, we included we created this. We said if it hits the food, we want to make sure that we're sending a message to the game control to basically play the method or implement the method, increase score. So we have to make sure that exists. And I'm going to make it public so that this other script can access it. We just want it to do 2 things. We want it to add to the score. So this is incrementing by whatever the food points are, which is 10 right now. And we also want to update that the text field that we're creating. So that's going to be equal to score, and then the actual score itself. This is a string. These are the letters, words that are going to show up, and then this variable can change. So we want to make sure that we have 2 items here. So it's going to tell our player what the numbers mean, and it's going to update the numbers every time they get the food. Okay, I think we're done with our scripts. So now we just want to make sure that we've got everything we need. Again, this is going to just make sure that it's compiling our scripts. It's just kind of loading it all into our project and making sure it all makes sense, and then we can start playing around with it. Thanks for bearing with me with my computer's load times. Alrighty, so we've got our game controller, we've got our script, we've got our prefab that we can add right here. So I'm just adding that in, and then we do want to make a spot for our score calculator as well. And this is just a way for us to make sure that the game feels, you can tell that you're making progress through as you're playing. So I'm just gonna set that to 0. This text will actually get erased because we set it in our game control script, but we just left it identical. So hopefully no one will be any the wiser. And then I'm gonna actually look at this in our game window. You can see it down here on the bottom left. I'm just kind of anchoring that to the bottom left so that it's not showing up anywhere else. And then I'm just going to adjust that a little bit just to make it pop out a bit. Something like that should be good. I want it to be a little bit bigger, and we can color it. We can do all kinds of fun things with it. So we could change the font too, but we're just keeping it simple for now. And then we do want to make sure that gets filled in over here, so this knows what it's looking for. Okay, so we've got our fish, we've got a game controller, we got a score, and then hopefully this is gonna work like I think it's gonna work. We're loading in. And we got some food falling. Oh, and that just bounced right off. So our collider's working. But something's not quite right. So I'm just going to debug that real quick. Let's see if we can figure that out. I'm checking my prefab. Oh, I never actually applied the tag. That would be why. Because it's looking for that food tag, remember? But if it's not there, it's not going to do anything with it. So the score wasn't increased, and the food didn't disappear. So now that that's on there, hopefully it's going to actually delete the food and increase our score. So now we got a game. We can eat some food, and that's it. It's a real simple little game. May not keep you entertained for long, but we can always add on things. We could add different kinds of food. We could add enemies that you have to avoid. We could add sound effects and particle effects and all kinds of things. But I just wanted to show you the real basic way of just getting something up and moving. So thank you for bearing with me and my slow computer and my barky dog. But hey, we made a game together. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you. And we'll play again soon.